Welcome to the channel, Infinite Exploit, where we learn and have fun. Let's get started and Brody, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Love you guys.
So now we're going to talk about C Sharp. It's an awesome programming language that can be used to build desktop applications with .NET Framework and video games with Unity. Now, C Sharp is compiled into an intermediate language that can be interpreted by CLR, which can be executed by any operating system. So to go ahead and get started, I recommend getting this text editor here. It's Visual Studio Code. It's an integrated development environment. So this is good for auto completion and syntax highlighting to just make debugging the code and writing it faster and easier. Also, we're going to get .NET. SDK. So we're going to go to Microsoft's website and download .NET. That way we can compile and run the code, okay? Now, once you get this installed, you'll go ahead and open up Visual Studio Code. And I already started out, doing a template here. And I'll explain to you what this is. Once we open up Visual Studio Code, we're going to go ahead and type this out. This is going to be our first beginning program that we're going to write in C Sharp. So we're going to go ahead and type this out using system. And basically, this line tells the program that we're going to use a special set of tools. It's called a namespace, and it's going to make things easier to do, like print text to the screen. Then we're going to specify that we're using a class called program. Okay, so we're naming our class program, and that's where we're going to put our code. Think about a class like a container where we're going to put our code. We're going to use the static void main string args. What basically means static means that it doesn't need an object to work. It's like a special method that runs its own code. Void means it does not return anything. So it just does something, like print text. And in here, we're going to have our main method. Okay. So once you get Visual Studio Code open and put this in the screen, if it doesn't show your terminal down here, you can go here, terminal. You can do new terminal, split terminal, and you want to verify that you have the .NET framework installed on your machine. So we're going to do that by typing .NET, and it looks like we have it installed. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to make a new directory. I'm going to do mkdir, and I'm going to call it C Sharp. And I'm going to change directory to C Sharp. All right, now we're in the C Sharp directory. We do ls. We don't have anything there. So in order to create the files, we're going to do .NET new console, and this is going to build what we need. So I do ls, and it build a program.cs, and that's the name of our class. It's going to build this file, and it's going to have this directory. Now, in order to run this line of code, we're using console right line. It should say hello from infinite. So in order to do this and run it and test the code, we're going to do .NET run, right? And it's going to print this text to the screen, right? Well, let me save it first. It's printing. It's like it's restoring an old value. C file. Yeah, yeah. All right. Let's see what we got here. So in order to run this, we're going to do .NET run. And as you can see, it's printing hello from infinite, right? So let's talk about variables. So let's talk about variables in C Sharp. Now, a lot of times when we're writing programs, we're going to be dealing with a lot of data. So it's going to be a lot of information that's going to be used, and a lot of times it can be hard to keep track of or manage. Now, we have a container called a variable where we can store some of that information. So, for example, I'm going to show you what variables are and how they're useful. So let me add these two lines of code right quick. This is saying hello from infinite. At one point, infinite has 0 subscribers. Now infinite has more than 0 subscribers. So I'm able to print this out. Let me go ahead and save it. It works. It prints this out. I say, hey, what if I want to change infinite? What if I want to change the IX? What if I want to change 0? Now I can change it individually, manually in this code, but that'd be a tedious task if it's like 100 or 1,000 lines of code. So I could do that. So this is a perfect example where variables will come into play to make the process easy. So some containers can store text, some can store true or false values, some can store numbers. So I want to store, I want to create a variable that can store this. It's going to be a string, right? It's just plain text. So I'm going to tell C Sharp that I want to do a string variable. So I'm going to say string. I want to give it a name. Now, when we name variables, we want to be a descriptive name that identifies what's inside of there. So I'm going to call it, I'm going to call it channel name. And usually you want to use camel case, where the first word is lowercase. If you do another word, it's uppercase, okay? And we're going to equals, and we do quotation marks. Now, we always want to end it with a semicolon. Now, we want to put in the string of text we want to put in here. So I'm going to do infinite. I want to also do one that stores this a number. to represent the subscribers. Now, we can do an integer variable. So I do int. It's like a whole number that doesn't have a decimal. So I'm going to name this subscriber num, and I can declare it like this, right? And then I can go equal 0, right? That's how I declare a variable. This is how I assign a variable, right? So yeah, so this is just declaring it, and then this is initializing or assigning a value to it. Okay. Yeah. So this is doing the same thing. Okay. So now we can use these variables inside of this. Now I'm gonna show you how we can do this. So over here, it's saying hello from infinite, but I don't want to type out infinite. I just want to refer to that variable. So I can get rid of this, and outside this, I want to do the plus sign, and that means I want to append text or a value to the end of this. So what I want to do, I want to put the name of the variable. So I do channel name, and it's going to print out hello from, and it's going to print out the value that's stored inside channel name. So let me demonstrate that. So let me go ahead and save it. I use Control S. You can use your own shortcut, or you can do file save. Let's see. It's assigned, but its value is never used. So yeah, we haven't used that one yet, but see, it's still printing out the same story here. We're gonna add this variable in there as well. So we're gonna do this for the number, and that's gonna remove that. So I'm gonna do. Let's see here. I'm gonna do plus, and I'm gonna do subscribe. All right. All right. So I'm just going through and replacing these values with the variable names. Okay. So that's all I'm doing here. Channel name plus. All right. Subscriber num. Let's do this plus space right there. Channel name. So I do a space like that plus, and then do space like that. All right. Now we can go ahead and save it, and then we can run it. Let's see where it's saying syntax error. Oh yeah, I didn't put a plus right here. All right. Okay. So that looks good to me. All right. Let's save it again. Let's run it. All right. So as you see, it's printing the same story here, right? And to get a little space, I can do this. Get a little space between here and save it. Now, what's cool is if I want to change this, what if I want to do 5 and I want to change this to IX? I just modify these two values in just this one spot, and now I can change it. So let's run it. As you see, it makes it easier to keep track and manage this information. So now it occurs multiple times in the story. You know, these are distinct pieces of information that are information we want to keep track of. So that's how we use variables to make it easy to manage data in the story. So what if halfway through I want to change it? So for example, what if I want to change the name here? And I could say channel name, and I want to make it infinite again. It's going to change. So let's save it. Let's run it. So it's going to be halfway through, and later you can change it. So as you see here, and then it's changed back in. Okay, there's a lot more to learn with this. I'm also teach you about different types of information you could store inside of here. We can do strings, that's text. We can do whole numbers. We're going to learn about those data types. So we're going to deal with a lot of different types of data. So it's going to be a lot of type of information that we're going to be dealing with. I'm going to talk about the different types of information and type of data that you can deal with or be representing. So we talked about a couple. So we created these variables, which is containers, and I'm going to show you what types of data we can store. So the plain text, we use the string data type, and I made that variable name, channel name, to be distinctive. And inside those quotation marks, I put the string, which can be a name. I could say my channel, for example, right? All right, and we can do a single character. So right here, I declared an integer here, but let's do a single character. So I do char. I can do, for example, grade, and I can only put one single character. So like A or B or C. I can't do this, right? So I'm gonna do D. All right, and when we do numbers, it's integer like we did here. So I declared it here, and I assign it here. But I actually can just do this, int, describe a num, and I can do this, right? I can just put it all on one line. So on numbers, you don't put quotation marks right there. If you did, it'd be considered a string text. You can also do minus as well. It can minus. So we can do decimal numbers as well. So we did like 55.4. We can put that in one of three data types that we can use to represent this. We have floats, we have doubles, and we have decimal. Okay. So if we want to be very, very precise, we want to use decimal. It's like money or anything where you got to be exact with. A float will be less precise, and double is kind of right in the middle. So we want to use double for right now. All right. So if you need to be super accurate, you want to use that decimal. So I'm gonna do this like GPA, and I'm gonna say 2.6, 2.7, 2.6 here. That'd be good. So we have the integers represent whole numbers, then we have doubles represent decimal, and we have one more, and it's gonna be called a boolean. It's a true or false value. So I'm gonna say bool, and I'm gonna say is tall, right? And I can say it's true, or we can say it's false, right? That's all it means. So we'll say false. So this will tell you if the person is tall. You can say false or true, depending if they are or not. That's why booleans are very useful. These are like the core data types in C Sharp. It's a couple more, and they're not used as much, but it's more. But these will be the main ones to start off. Like 99% of the stuff you're gonna be using this, and this is as a beginner you want to be focused on these. So you can also represent these outside of here. So I can do console dot right line, and if I want to print out 30, I can print that out as well, right? And that's a constant. It's a value. It's not putting in a value or anything like that. I can do false. This is a constant. I don't have to store it in a variable, but I can just use it like that as well. That's the basis of data types in C Sharp. And we can write a lot of awesome code here. So let's talk about strings in C Sharp. Now, it's one of the most useful pieces of information that you'll be using. And I'll show you some cool things we can do and how we can use them. So when we do the console dot right line, it just prints text to the string. So if I say my channel, right, I can print this out. If I want to do a comment, do this. This is basically what this does is it comments out, so that way when the code is executed, it's not going to run these lines. It's going to ignore them. This is typically used to write down what a code is doing or write a note to self. You want to do a multi-line, you'll do this, right? And in between here, you can put multi-line uh, comments. So let's go ahead and save this one and let's run it. Let's see. Let's say build failed. Let's see. It could be because I didn't have it uppercase. Let's see. Okay, yeah, so that's what it was. My channel, that's what's printing out. Now, sometimes you will get this message if you have variables declared and assigned and they're not being printed or used. Now, we can do something else. Like, what if I wanted to print this on a new line? Then I can actually do \n, and that way my will be on one line and channel on another, right? As you can see there. What if I wanted to write out a quotation mark? If I did this, right, it's going to end this string. It's not. I can use this backslash to print out the quotation mark as well. So I can do that, right? Okay. So you see it printing the quotation mark there. And as you see, you can also put a string inside of a variable like I did here, right? And I can print out, for example, channel name, right? And it should print out my channel together like that, as you see here. And like we said, we can do concatenation. So I can say plus my channel is teaching, right? It should print both now when I print it out, as you see. Well, another thing we can do is we can do phrase.length method. And basically what this does is it tells how many characters are inside of a string. So like say we want this, and we can do a channel name.length. So let's see, which is tell us how many characters are in there. So let's see, it's a 9, right? And that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, that's why it's printing like that. We can also put this in upper, right? So we can use this method here called to upper, and it could print all this in uppercase, right? As you see, it changed my channel to uppercase. Now, what if we wanted to find a specific character? Now, these are referred to as by their index. So instead of going 1, 2, 3, like how we just counted, in most programming languages, the first character starts with 0. So it goes 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So if I wanted to print like this Y, I would look for index 0. I mean, it's index 1, I'm sorry. So the way we do that is we'll do open and close square bracket, index 1, close that off, save it, and it should print out the Y to the screen. Let's see. Oh yeah. So this is, I didn't do a comment when I typed this out. I'm sorry. So let's rerun it again. So it print out that Y to the screen, right? So now I want to talk more about what we can do with numbers. So numbers is one of the most common types of data we'll be using in C Sharp. So I'm gonna show you how we'll use it, what different types of numbers we can use as well. So some complex math operations and stuff like that as well. So so if I wanted to represent numbers, I could just type them out. I can do 5, 3, 6. We can do the whole numbers, which is integers like 4, 5, 6. Then we have the decimals like this, right? So it's a difference between working with whole numbers and working with decimals. So if I type in 50 and I run it, they're pretty easy to work with. It should print 50 to the screen. So instead of this, I can do 6 plus 9. So it should print this. It should print this out to the screen for us and do that. So this is the thing we can do asterisk, right? Which is multiplication. So it should multiply those two numbers, right? We can do division. Yep. We can do subtraction. Should give a negative, right? And we also can do percent sign. So for example, what if we do 50 divided by 2? Well, 50% 5. It's going to give us the remainder, right? Or we did 5% 3. That's called modulus. It gives us the remainder, right? So so we also can assign and declare variables. Create variables with these numbers too. So if I did int and I want to say number is equal to 5, right? Then I can print number. So it should print 5 to the screen. And like we said, those variables we're creating are containers, right? Now, what if we want to add to it? So we can do something like number equals number plus 1, right? And that can make it 6. But we have a shorthand where we can do number plus plus, and that's an increment. So now it should print 6. And in addition to that, we can also do minus minus, which will make it 4, right? Now we also have methods that we can use. So for example, we can use the math methods, for example. And for example, let's say we did math.pow, and I can take two numbers. So let's say 4, and I can raise it to the 4th power, and that should print that to the screen for me, right? And we could do like, for example, square root. So let's say we do like 25. It should give us 5, right? Let's see. Yeah, make sure uppercase with that method there. Let's run it again. Yeah. And I can use like, let's say max and use two numbers. So 25 and 13, it should print out the highest number out of these two, right? And we have another one called min, which should print out the lowest. So now we're going to talk about getting input from a user in C Sharp. So the cool thing is we can actually have our program interact with the user. So we can run the program and we can give it some information. We can use it to do different things. So uh, most programs, you know, you may have it's asking for user input. So we're gonna have the user type in a value. So I'm going to say greetings. Let's say greetings. So for example, so now we're going to talk about getting input from the user. So so now we're going to talk about getting input from now we're going to talk about getting input from the user. So the way we're going to do that is, just before we was using console dot write line. This is print set out and go to a new line. So we'll do console dot write, and this will just keep it on the same line. So I'm gonna say who are you, right? And I'm gonna do console dot read line for the enter this. So I want to be able to store the value that they enter. So I'm gonna do that with a variable. So it's gonna get the line of text they enter as a string of characters, right? And I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do string name, right? I'm gonna make it a variable down, and I'm gonna do console dot write line, and I'm gonna say greetings plus name. All right. So let's save it. Let's run it. So as you see, when we use the console.write, is let me put my name on the same line, right? As part of doing it, instead of doing a new line. So it gets stored inside of that name variable when we do infinite. So it's gonna say greetings. Infinite. So let's do another one. What if we wanted it to say let's see here. Well, we'll copy this, go down here. What is your age? All right. And same thing, we can do int age equals, let's see, console dot read line. Take this off, put it here, and I'm gonna say greetings, and we'll say you are. I can do plus age. Okay, I gotta convert string to int, so I gotta make this just string since we're putting it on we're concatenating together with text. All right, so who are you? Infinite 43. Okay, so that's good. So all right, so now we're gonna talk about arrays in C#. Now, a lot of times we're dealing with a large amount of types of data. Now I'm going to talk about arrays. A lot of times, if you're dealing with a lot of data, you want to store it like a. So now I'm going to talk about arrays. Arrays are used to store a lot of data in a variable. Usually we talked about integers and strings. We can only store like one thing in there. If we're dealing with huge amounts of information, we want to put it in an array. So it's a structure let us hold multiple pieces of information, right, in a container. So for example, we can do this by doing, say we want to do numbers. I'll do int, since we don't hold numbers. I'll do open and close square brackets. I'll call it my favorite nums. And but we'll do open and close curly bracket. And I'm gonna always do even numbers, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. And I put a bunch of different integers in here. Now, I separate with comma. These are all elements in the array. This is the first element, second element. And like we talked about earlier, we have this container called my favorite nums. And like we talked about, we will still access, right, our elements from these indexes like this right quick. Okay. Now, this is how we do it. So we do console, right line. I do open and close square bracket, and I want to specify the index, what I want to access. So if I want to access 6, I do 0, 1, 2, right? So I want to access this one. All right, so let's print out, right? So we also can update the value. So what if I wanted this 2 to be 22, right? Then I can do my favorite nums. I can make that, since it's the first index, I'll do this. I'll make it 22. And then when I print 0, it should print out 22. Go ahead and save that. Let's run it. So we also can do an array of strings, right? And the way we can do that, for example, let's say instead of int, we'll do string, open and close square brackets, and I can do games, and I can do new games, and I can do, let's say I wanted to hold 5 elements. Then I can make game 0 equal Mortal Kombat, right? And I can make games 1 equal Pac-Man. So same thing, I could print to the screen by accessing the element in that array. So I do that by doing games 0. It should print out first this element here, which I changed to 22, and it should print out more to come back. So let's run it. Let's see again. Let's see this again. There's a oh, okay. I see what I did. I should have did string right there. Okay, use like a type. Okay, so 22 and more to come back. Okay. So now we're going to talk about methods in C Sharp. It's basically a block of code where we can perform a specific type of task. We may have 5 or 10 lines that are performing a specific task. So we're going to do a certain thing with it. Now we can create a method to take all that code and put it in its own container, and we can execute it. We can just call that method. We can use it in different spots. So I'm going to show you how we create one, and I'll talk about what it does and how it's useful. So I want to create a method that's going to say, hey, hi to the user. So now I'm going to talk about methods in C Sharp. It's just basically a block of code that is used to perform a specific task. So sometimes you might have 5 or 10 lines that perform a specific task. So what we can do is we can create a method to take all that code, put it in its own container, and we can run and execute it. We can just call that method, and we can use it in different spots. So it's similar to like a function. And we'll talk about how to create it. And I want to create one. I want to have one that says hi to the user. So what I want to do, I want to come outside of these curly brackets. So where they static void main, it's a method inside of our program. It's just a container where we can put code that performs a specific task. So this main method is very special. It's the first thing that gets executed when we run the program, right? So if I put anything here, it's going to run this first. So if I want to go outside of this. I'm going to I can come up above it, but I'll go below it and create it. I need to tell C# a couple different things. We need to say static. So it say static. We need to specify a return type. So these methods can give us back information. So if I run one of these methods, we're going to talk about return types a little more. I'm going to do void. That means it's not going to return any information. It's like the simplest method we can create. Now I want to give it a name. So methods are usually performing a specific task. So it's going to say hi. So I'm going to say greetings. So most times you want to name it capital. So that's Pascal naming convention. So I'm going to do my greetings, right? So I'm going to do open and close curly brackets. And then here, I could just do console dot right line. Hello there, right? Let's go ahead and run it. So if I So it's not running this code, right? The only thing that's going to get ran is code inside this main method. If I want to execute everything in this my greetings function, I can call this method, right? So the way I can call it is I can say my greetings, open and close parentheses. So when I run it now, it should print it out, right? So what it does, it goes in here, it comes over, and then it runs this, right? And I can run this multiple times. I can call this method multiple times. So I can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can also give this method information, right? I can have it take in information like a parameter or argument, right? And I can have it use that value. So for example, I can specify what type of information I want to accept. So instead of saying, hello there, what if I want to say hello to a specific person? I can do string name. I'm just saying, hey, the my greetings method need to take in one value, which is a name, right? And I can do hello plus name. So now I need to pass in strings. So I can do Timmy, I can do Billy, Mike, Tommy, and Sarah, right? I can call it again and again and pass in different names, right? So if I want to give a little space, I can do that. That way it's not running together like that, right? I can write this code in one place and use it continuously. I can also specify multiple parameters. So what if I want to put an age in there? I could do int age, and I could say hello you are, and I could do plus age, right? So now I need to give, I could do 30, 40, 50, 19. So methods and functions are essentially the same thing. So sometimes you'll have it called function, sometimes you'll hear it called method. So as you see here, we have that. So now I want to talk about return types. So for example, let's write let's write some code that can return a specific power. Scroll up here, that comment is right there. So for example, what if I wanted to raise 5 to the 4th power? I can represent that like that, right? Or I can do it's 5 times 5 times 5 times 5 times 5 times 5, right? So that's what it'd be equivalent to. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to create a method that's going to do this. So I'm going to do static. We did void and not return anything. Now I want to return a specific data type. I want to return an integer. So I'm going to go int, and I'm going to call it power. I'm just going to take it int num, and num is going to be what they take in, and we want to return to them the value of power cube. So I'm going to say int result equals num times num times num times num, right? And I'm going to do return. It's going to tell the method that we want to return this piece of information back to the user or caller. Okay, so I'm going to return the results, right? Let's go up in the main method and call it. I'm going to say power, and I'm going to say 5. Let's see what happens. So it ran, but nothing happened. Now, if I did console dot write line, right, it should print it out. It should queue this, right? 625. That's extremely useful. That's where we can get information back. So now we're going to talk about if statements. So now we're going to talk about if statements in C#. Now it's a special structure that allows us to. Now we're going to talk about if statements, and if statements is a conditional statement. So what that means is if something is true, then it does something. Otherwise, it does something else, right? So I'll write this in pseudocode for you so you can see. So for example, if I'm 21, I can buy beer, right? Otherwise, or else, let's say otherwise right now, I cannot. That's a simple way that it'll be used. So I'm going to show you how we can use this. I'm going to create a variable. I'm going to do bool, and I'm going to say is 21, and I'm going to say true. Now let's do an if statement. I can make a if statement based off of this, right? 21. So I can say if, open and close parentheses, and open and close curly bracket. This is inside here. I want to specify a condition. So like I was saying, if I'm 21, and the condition need to be a true or false value. So is 21, you're gonna have one or two values. So this is what we're gonna do. I want to see is 21, then we'll do console right line. You can drink beer. All right. So let's run it. It said you can drink beer. So if I say it's false, it doesn't do anything. So what if they're not 21? I can do another condition. I can say else, and we're gonna write console right line. You can't drink beer. Right. Now we create a program that can respond to this variable. Right. You can't drink beer. Right. Now the program is smart. It can adapt and adjust depending on the value. Right. Now that's how if statements will work. It can allow the program to make decisions. This is a very, very, very basic if statement. So what if we did? We can also do this with integers. So for example, what if I say int age is equal to 21, right? So if age, this is, and now we're going to talk about comparison operators as well. So we're going to make this a little bit more complex. It's equal to 21, then you can drink beer. Else, right? You can't. So I got set 21, so it should print that first line again, right? So what if I make the age 18? It should print the else statement. You can't drink beer. So that's the way you can do it with. Now, what if I say, let's say bool, and I say it's sober, right? And we make it true. So this is the thing. I can do this. I can and 21 and it's sober. You can't. So this is the thing. You can't drink beer because you are too young. And we can do an else if condition. So this is the thing. We can do an else if condition that can say you can't drink beer because you are not sober. Right? That's what we can do an else if condition. So let me go ahead and enter, put a little space here. Else if, and then this is what we're gonna do. So if it's sober, you can drink, and this means it's not sober, right? You're too drunk to drink, right? Too drunk to drink, right? And so if they're 21 and sober, they can't drink. If they're 21 and not sober, you're too drunk to drink, right? And if and if their age is not equal 21, you can't drink because you're too young. So let's say this and run. Yeah, you can't drink beer because you're too young. Now we can also make, let's say I make this 29 and they're sober, so they can drink beer. Now I'm gonna, let's see, it's equal to 21. No, I need to make this not equal. I need to make this age is greater than or equal to. So if you're 21 and up, this is what this is, right? If you're 21 and up, we're going to use this. So now let's run it. So you can drink beer because you are sober. So if this is false, it's going to follow this because you are older than 21, but you're already drunk. You are too drunk to drink, right? So we talked about comparison operators. So you can do less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, greater than, less than, right? And this is the thing too that you can do. So age is greater than or equal to, and we can do an or operator with this, right? Right? We can do that. And let's run it. Let's see what we get. You can drink beer because only one of these have to be true. So they met this condition because they're 29, but they didn't meet that condition, but they still can drink, right? So now I'm going to talk about while loops. So while a condition is true, it allows us to execute a certain line of code. So it'll come in handy in a lot of cases. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to show you how we get started with this. So in this main method, I'm going to create a while loop. I'm going to int, and I'm going to make the index equal to 1. So I'm going to say while, open and close curly brackets, and inside here, we're going to put a condition in here, right? We're going to do a Boolean expression. So I'm going to say, if it's true, I'm going to have it execute code in between these curly brackets. So we're going to keep executing it until this is false, right? So let's say if index is less than equal to 5, and I'm going to console right one index. So this is the thing. If I ran this, this would be considered an infinite loop because it's always going to be less. One is always going to be less than 5, right? It's going to continue to print these ones, right? Now let's do this. If I do index plus plus, this is going to increase that 1 to 2, then 2 to 3, then 4 to 5. So as you see, right? So now we're going to talk about how to use a for loop in C Sharp. It allows us to keep track of iterating variable. So it's going to, if an element in an array or something like that changes, then we can loop through it. So I'll give you an example of how that works. So, so you see this basic while loop here. In order to do the for loop, I'm going to do for. I'm going to put 3 different things inside here. I'm going to put a variable initialization. So I'm going to do this. This is going to be separate, right? I'm going to do this. I'm going to say int index equals 1, right? I can put this as the second item. I can take the variable initialization and the loop condition, right? And I can increment here. So let's go to console, that right line, and it's going to say hello universe, right? Now, this should print this out 5 times, hello universe. So instead of someone doing this, right, which they can do this with just this amount of code here. So let's go ahead and run it. Give me 1 second. Let's see index. Index equals 1. So essentially, this is this. So let me get rid of this right quick. All right, let's save it. Let's run it. So as you've seen, it's printing 1 through 5. Let's see, can it print text? Let's say hi. It'll print hi 5 times, right? So we're going to talk about how to use classes and objects in C Sharp. Now, it's going to be a very basic video. So a lot of times when you're dealing with a lot of data, you're going to want to represent different things. Now, we have a lot of data types already in C Sharp. We can do strings to represent text. We can use integers and decimals, true, false with Boolean. With those limited data types, we're not able to represent or model everything that we want in the program. So think about things in the real life that you can't represent, like a computer or a car. You can't represent that with a string. It's a complex entity, and you can't break it down into a string or a number or anything like that. So you have limitations. So what I want to talk about is classes and objects. Well, they allow you to create your own data type, and they allow you to represent something inside of your program. So we'll create a class that will specify a new data type. I can create a class for a phone, a computer, a car. We can model real world entities with that. I'm gonna show you how we can build one. So right here in our folder, I can do new file, right? And I want to name it. So I'm gonna do car. This is what I want to name it, right? I want to create a car data type, right? I'm gonna call it car.cs and hit enter, right? So what I'll do, we'll use using system, right? And we can do class car using that right here. So we're gonna put attributes inside of this to define what it is. So this is the thing too. So it knows that we're relating to this one. We'll do namespace. I'm gonna program because that's the namespace that we're gonna be connected to, right? So I'm gonna do string. I'm gonna do public string. I'm gonna do public string make public string model and public int cost. So I'm creating a blueprint for the car. So inside of this, it's going to have a make, model, and a cost. It's a specification. This is like a template. Now I can create a car inside of my program, right? And I can store it inside a variable, and I can create an object. So let me show you how we do that. So let's go back to this one. This is the file that has our main method. So I'm going to show you how we can create this. So I created that class, and I defined what a car is. I can create an object. An object is an instance of a class. So when we create that class, we create a template. Now the object will be an actual car, right? So let me show you how we do that. All right, so I'm gonna do car. So you know how we did int and string? I'm gonna do car1 equal new car. And this is how we create a car object. This is like a physical car inside the program. So car to us exactly what it is. So I went ahead and created it. So we can use car1 just like a variable. So we know the car has all these attributes. So it can have a make, model, and a cost. So we want to give it all these attributes. So the car has all of these attributes, right? It can have a make, a model, and a cost. So when we create it, we want to give it all those attributes. So I can do car1 make. I could say Chevrolet. I could say car1 model, Monte Carlo, right? And I can do cost and let's say 40,000. So now I do console. Let's see. So console dot right line. I could do car1 make, and it should print out the make for me right there. Let me save it. Let's run it. Let me make sure this one's saved in the right location. Save. Let's see. Let me try to remove it and see. Let me put it inside there like that. All right, let's see. The names. Okay, yeah, I see what the issue is. I need to change this from uppercase to lowercase. All right. Now let's save it and let's run it again. And it should print out the make. It should print out Chevrolet. And we can do the same thing As well, we can make this the model. So we can print out the model. Let's run it. Another thing too is I can create another one. I can do like car. I could take all this and make a car too, right? And I can do like Ferrari, Spider, two, car two, and I'll make it $500,000. And I can print car two, all right? So I can do this as many times as I like. So this is a quick example of how you create a class um, and how you can create objects.